and apparently more than what the justice system could handle. The boy was more than they could cope with. 1 year in juvenile detention was the boy's sentence, which would probably be reduced to 6 months if he behaved. The man felt his fury rise just thinking about it. In a few months, this boy would be out on the streets again, raping more innocent girls, beating more people up. And who knows what he might do next? The man knew these boys. They came back again and again. They never learned, and the punishment the court gave them simply wasn't enough for them to stay out of trouble. And while they were inside the juvenile center, well, they just made new friends that were bad for them, who got them into more trouble as soon as they got out. It was a joke, really, the man thought. That was why he decided to take matters into his own hands. The man looked at the tools and decided on the folding utility knife. Chapter 2. It was Johnny's first time in the juvenile prison in Rodvigstevens on the east coast of Zealand. But it wasn't his first time in prison. He had done time before. 3 times before, to be accurate. So it wasn't an unfamiliar situation for him to be put in the small cell with nothing but a hard bench to sleep on, a desk, a closet, a small 14-inch TV, and a sink. "Here you go," the warden said, and Johnny stepped inside without a word. The door was closed behind him and locked. Johnny sighed and sat on the bench. It was just as hard as it had been in the other places he had been. The barred window under the ceiling seemed smaller, and the walls were all painted screaming yellow. Those were about the only things that weren't exactly the same as in the other places. The other inmates probably would be too. It usually didn't take Johnny long to piss some of them off and get beaten up in the toilet room. But he didn't care. He had gotten stronger while he was on the outside by working out a lot. Plus, he was older now, and probably among the oldest. His experience would give him an advantage. It hadn't been his plan to be in this situation again. After his 3rd time on the inside, he decided it was time to change his life. Once released from the previous prison, Johnny hadn't gone back to his old friends. He moved to get away from them and to start a new life. Where it went wrong along the way, he now had 2 years to think about. Johnny rubbed his forehead and stared at the window. He could see nothing but the sky from here. How he already missed the big outside. He sighed and hit a fist into the pillow. "Damn you, Christian!" he yelled. Christian was his younger brother. He was the reason why Johnny had ended up in here, locked up once again. Johnny picked up the remote to take his mind off his brother. The small TV under the ceiling made a noise, and some news anchors started talking. Johnny wasn't in the mood for too much reality, so he flipped the channels and found an old rerun of Friends. One he had seen many times before, but still made him forget about his situation for just a few minutes. As soon as it was done, Johnny's thoughts circled back again on his brother. Johnny didn't know where he was hiding, but he hoped it was a good place, since the cops were still searching for him. Johnny hadn't cracked. He hadn't ratted his brother out, and never regretted not doing so. Johnny had told them he did it, that he had done everything, and no one else was involved. But of course, they hadn't believed him. They threatened him with hell on earth if he didn't speak. They told him that they knew he was only taking the blame for his brother, and that all he had to do was to tell them that Christian was the one who had done it, and where he was, and then they would let Johnny go. Of course, Johnny hadn't listened to them. Who listens to cops? Who would rat out his own brother? No, he'd rather serve time, even though he hadn't done anything, even though he had finally gotten his life back on track. It didn't matter. When it comes to family, you stick up for one another. You do what's necessary to help each other, even if it means doing time for something you didn't do. It was beside the point. Yet they were still looking for him. They would be until they found him, they told Johnny. "We'll get him, and then we'll make both of you do the time." Johnny shrugged like he didn't care, but that was a lie. He did care. A lot even.